Hello and welcome to another Groovy Roundtable. Today we're talking with Martin Petersen from GameSwing. GameSwing is a company that invented an incredible little game called Stikbold, which my daughter and I played at the Copenhagen Games eSports Summit about 2 months ago now. I was fascinated by what these guys have produced, and when I've been talking with Martin, he dropped some very interesting bits of information about the way that they marketed the product. I decided to bring him in today to have a chat and also reveal some of these pearls of wisdom that I'm sure he's got stashed away in his head. So Martin, tell me a little bit about GameSwing, when you guys got started and this approach that you took with Stikbold.
Yeah, so the way we started out was not the typical way you should start a company, at least if you go to school for that sort of stuff. So we were actually just 5 students, game design students at IT University, and we had made this prototype of a game at Nordic Game Jam, where it came in 3rd, and it was awarded the most fun game. And it was like a local multiplayer style game, dodgeball game, very colorful and over-the-top action-y. And we just kind of thought this was a fun idea. We kept developing it a little bit and then tried to see like were there any interest anywhere. We submitted it to some competitions and stuff, and it actually got noticed a little bit. We won a competition, and so we just kind of decided, let's see how far we can push this thing.
And when was this?
That was in 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a long process, and we were still, like as I said, we were students, so we couldn't even like develop full time and stuff. People were still like writing thesis and stuff. So it was very much a hobby project that just slowly turned more and more serious. So in that way, it was never, of course, that we just met and thought, okay, let's write a business plan on how to do this. It just kind of happened that way. So so that posed some interesting challenges, but also it also had some benefits, I think.
When you were beginning to formulate this into, okay, this could be an interesting game, this could be an interesting business, at what point did you suddenly start to think, okay, we have to get some information out about this? And when we were talking, you mentioned that you'd had a couple of very interesting people like PewDiePie picking up on your game and beginning to play it. Was that intentional from day one, or did you kind of plan that? Did it sort of emerge as you were sort of building the game and getting recognition?
So the actual real coverage from the bigger players in the field, that happened late, of course, near the release. But the thought process involved and the effort started very early, actually. At a very early point, we started using stuff like Reddit to show our development. When we made new stuff that we thought was cool and looked interesting, we would make GIFs of it and put it up on Reddit and see how people reacted. And I think Reddit is a good tool for sort of the initial interest, because there's a lot of first movers on Reddit, and it's almost all about being first to discover the new interesting stuff there. But it's also a difficult thing, because like people can turn on you and stuff. But the community is can be very good and very helpful if you don't.
Okay, that's interesting. And were you dropping it into your own discussions, or were you adding it to other people's discussions?
We were adding it to like indie game subreddit and Unity subreddit, and we were trying different stuff, and we were sort of trying to figure out where we got the most interest and attention. So at first we also tried to do our own thing. We wanted to like have a blog and share our experience and our content a little bit on that. But we eventually decided that it was so much effort to do the blog posts that it took too much from the actual development. So we just had a blog that wasn't updated frequently enough. So we ended up skipping that part and then saying, okay, if we're going to do some interesting content stuff, just put it out on somebody else's stuff that already have traction, and then we can kind of mutually benefit from it. It was much easier for us.
Sure, sure. How were you managing the feedback that was coming through the subreddits that you were on? Was it this a daily exercise that you were managing, or was it sort of a bit more ad hoc?
It was, we just kind of assigned some people to make sure to respond to all the comments and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was ad hoc, but it was not completely, like, we wasn't monitoring the stuff and making sure that we were engaging with people.
And so when did you sort of come up with a more focused approach to reaching out to these influencers that are out there on YouTube and various other online platforms? When did that sort of really begin to crystallize, and why?
It was there all along. Like we were, one of the things we did was we constantly just submitted our game while it was in development for all kinds of conferences and shows, so we can go places and meet somebody without paying much except for the travel expenses.
So you found the festival circuit and the competition circuit was very, very helpful?
It was good because we could keep iterating on the game and see how people responded to the game, so we could make it better all the time and see what people liked and what they didn't like. Mm-hmm. So it's a fairly cheap play test for a lot of people going through. And then on top of that, we would meet a lot of people and we would see where the interest was, and when there was interest, we would of course take their information down and log it and make sure we had a decent size catalog of people with interest. So there was an effort already there, that we had a back catalog of people that we knew were interested in the game. But yeah, the real sort of conscious approach of reaching out to them was happened a couple of months before the game released.
Okay. And that was when you had a sort of more polished product, everything was pretty much in its final stages?
Yeah, it was still sending like preview keys and review keys as well.
Just jumping back slightly, with the feedback that you were getting from various people within Reddit or from meeting people face to face at these kind of conferences, did you have any feedback that directly impacted on the game and the gameplay? And do you have a specific example of that? Or was it very just reaffirming everything that you kind of went into these conferences and these conversations thinking about already?
It's so hard to remember now because there's been so many changes over the time. And it was mostly just feeling what worked and what didn't work. And right now I can't remember a specific thing that we said, this has to go, or this. I mean, we kind of found out what we had to do more of. We figured out that things that, so in Stikbold, when the players are out of the game, it has a last man standing format. Last player standing wins a point. So when the other players shut out of the game and they're not in the round anymore, they still get the chance to influence the action with different events. And we figured out that like if we have some really spectacular events, you can get some very interesting situation that could create this kind of surprising awe moment in the middle of the action, and that was something audiences really responded for. So when we designed the following levels, we kind of had that in mind and say, how can we do something interesting? And then we made like a sand shark that would throw the players up in the air and eat them. That was
right.
Sort of that.
Okay, so the spectacular things from the environment can be controlled by players being knocked out.
Yeah. It was sort of figuring out how can we make these specific instances where people would like, whoa, be in shock and then laugh because it's so ridiculous.
I love the hot dog guy. You steal a hot dog off him and stun an opponent.
Yeah, that was also actually a thing that we discovered by play testing. The first level, it's very basic, and that's intentional because it's the first level you're supposed to play, so you shouldn't throw everything at people at once. But it was so bare that the dynamic wasn't so interesting. So we thought, how can we introduce cover in a gym? The gym is open. There's no natural cover there. So the most natural thing we could come up with was a hot dog cart that would give you.
Okay, and so this idea came back through feedback? Or,
that's also.
And specifically through playtesting or through social media?
Yeah, no, playtesting. Seeing that the action wasn't as good when there was no obstacles to hide behind.
This feedback from subreddits or from the games testing that you were doing?
No, we didn't use the Reddits for feedback like that. It was mostly like, hey, what do you think about this concept? So it was more the game shows and conventions where we got the feedback when players would play the game. And that's where we saw that we would deliberately not as much play the first level with the people because it kind of dragged out. But the pace of the game wasn't as good there as the other levels. So.
And then you would see four guys sitting around who would be knocked out, they wouldn't be doing anything, they'd be losing interest, and did someone just turn around to you and say, hey, it's really boring now, or did you suddenly think, oh, okay, there's a gap here?
No, we didn't hear it explicitly, it was more we could see it.
Okay.
We could see the dynamics was off.
No, it's a very good feature, and it's a good thing to spot, and having played the game, there are some fairly hilarious environmental features. But putting the conversation back towards this idea of influencer marketing, so what were the stages now? You've got the more or less the polished game, you're sending out keys to people. Did you have a specific list of people that you were planning on targeting, or were you just still throwing a lot of mud against the wall to see what would stick?
There was a lot of that, throwing mud against the wall, but there was also people that we knew we wanted to have. Like there are channels that specifically feature local multiplayer content, and we knew that we could probably get them to cover the game, and it would be nice for them. And we knew that also their audience would probably be very interested in local multiplayer games. So even if their audience are not as big as some of the big YouTubers, they're probably more dedicated to specifically local multiplayer games.
Okay.
So that was very important.
And this isn't just in the Nordics, or was this internationally?
No, internationally.
Okay.
It was all international. You're thinking like there was no specific.
You weren't handing a license just out for France so that no one else could touch it. And typical movie studio stuff.
Yeah. No. It was just internationally.
Okay. Give us some examples of the people on that immediate sort of local network hit list that you had in mind. And how did you track them down? Was this just through your own, experience, or were you specifically going through various channels, looking at what people had and putting that list together manually?
Yeah, we did some of that, but we found out that was later actually in the process. We started being more proactive ourselves, locating people, and we found out that at that point the whole kind of environment of games had changed a lot from when we started out. Like initially in 2013, we could get a lot of attention just telling our story as a game jam project that turned like a serious project.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2015, it was a lot harder to get the attention of like the traditional game sites and magazines and stuff. So we eventually figured out that it wasn't worth the effort. We spent so much time writing mails to them and so little response.
Why do you think that is?
Because the market is so flooded now compared to there's so many games now. So there's a lot more competition for the attention.
Okay. And what kind of things have driven that explosion in games? Is it the Unity platform itself suddenly becoming widely used?
It's a big mix of tools making it easier for people to make games. It's getting cheaper, you can do it for almost free now. And then there's, of course, the big thing is Steam introduced the Greenlight thing where everybody could get on Steam all of a sudden.
Okay.
So that was like a flood of games onto Steam.
So you didn't need a publisher to help you get on Steam anymore?
No.
Or any kind of distribution partner? It was like you and me could bang out the game.
You never needed a publisher to get on Steam or
Okay.
anything, but it usually was just Steam themselves or Valve who curated who was got onto Steam, and that was sort of a mysterious process that
Okay.
really, yeah, it was very weird. They kind of hand selected the games that they thought were interesting.
Right.
Interesting, and yeah, and now it's a more democratic way where everybody basically can go to Steam. Which
Okay.
I guess it should be like that, but it can also make it difficult.
Right, I guess you've got to get your PR sorted out like you guys did before going into that kind of experience. So that happened around about 2015. You saw competition really sort of beginning to...
Yeah, I don't know where, I mean, it gradually became worse, I think, but that was just kind of where we noticed how much more difficult it has become,
okay.
even in the few years that we have been developing.
So really now as a games producer, you have to have some kind of marketing plan. You can't just rely on the old method of just being in the market and talking about your stories. You mentioned you really have to have some kind of working plan.
I think you can do that, but you need to know how and why you do that.
Yeah, which is also...
You can make it work for you, but it's not just doing it. You need to know how to get it across.
So 2015, you're writing emails out to people, you're not seeing any response, you've got this subreddit that's been going for some time, you've got the connections that you've been making and all these different things. When did it suddenly start to crystallize, okay, now we're going to start to reach out to people with YouTube and Twitch accounts that have huge numbers of subscribers? What sort of really began to cement that as a process?
I think we knew all along that we wanted to do it, but our game we thought was kind of, it wasn't sort of a long form game. We didn't want to release it as early access and then keep updating and stuff. We wanted to have like one release and then that would be the release. So we held off with the whole YouTube thing until we were almost ready to release. So we didn't sort of build the attention and then it would go away before, or the interest would go away before the game released. So that was, we didn't actually release a lot of content, gameplay wise, before the very last part. I think 2 months before the game released.
Okay, so there was GIFs and JPEGs that you were releasing out as kind of like your press kit that you were building up with the community. Yeah. And then you thought about cutting a trailer quite late into the process. So there was like no gameplay.
No, we did some trailers as well, which we also shared on Reddit, and we got some coverage from Rock Paper Shotgun from Reddit actually. Okay. So they covered us twice, I think.
Nice. Okay, that's amazing. You know, this coverage was all great. A lot of this strategy was emerging as you guys went along. You were getting a lot of success. When did it actually start to come down to a point where you were like, okay, we're going to start to curate a list of people we want to reach now? And how did you go about that? What kind of things were you looking for in a potential influencer?
We're looking for, of course, like subscriptions. That's of course important. Then we're looking for somebody who were doing the same kind of games that we were doing. Somebody who could could show that the features of the game is a local multiplayer game. It's a fun action type thing. So we wanted somebody who had an audience that were into that kind of thing. And then we're actually looking also for like people who could reach families and have family-oriented content, and that was actually very difficult. That was a challenge to get like very family-specific content. We had some contacts in our list, and we also found some channels. I spoke with a friend of mine who been doing PR marketing for a company that works with Nintendo, so they of course have had the same kind of audience. So he knew some people, but it was more difficult to actually get them to respond.
Again, because of the attention problem, or the fact that these guys quite often...
I think there's just some kind of divide, maybe, of like there's just a specific way, more traditional way that companies market to families,
Yeah.
and then there's sort of another way of doing it for the sort of it's just, I think it's just a big mixed ball of people. Like it's not very easy to target who is the audience. Like there can be young adults, there can be children, there can be. It's very diverse, so it's kind of, you don't know who's watching the videos. I don't think as much on YouTube. So it's hard to say this is family content.
Yeah.
This is for the families. This is for the parents and the kids as well.
A friend of mine who works in PR in London was sitting down having a discussion with me. She's also in games PR, and she was saying that basically a lot of these people, they are, particularly the big ones, they're on a good roll, they're making money, or sometimes they're not making money, but they're very busy. And it'll be their other friends who will be managing, their timetables, their merchandising conversations and stuff like that. But there really isn't like a makers studio network that you can just dial into. It's just very much one-to-one contacts. So you were writing to these people directly and tweeting to them and just generally trying to message them that you guys were around, or were you trying to sort of hit them at the games conferences as well?
Yeah, we tried both. I mean, we tried hitting them up with email, but it was most effectively just to send them keys, I think. Like we had some pretty good presentation material, we had a good, nice looking trailer, and we knew more or less how to put together a mail that is to the point and not too long, and like what to show and what not to show. So I think it was the easiest way to just, we had the most effect of just sending keys to the influence that we wanted, rather than sending an email trying to set up an appointment for the trade show and then not having a response, and then we've used, I don't know, 3 days just contacting people and we get a couple of appointments. That's not worth the time effort.
Okay. So you had your sales collateral. Well, collateral is a horrible word, but you had your presentation for the game. Your game is quite visually stunning. You had your materials. You would send an email with a key, just saying, "Hey guys, try this out. Come back to us if you find it interesting." Kind of, what was your hit rate with that? How many emails roughly did you send out, and what kind of percentage did you receive back in terms of, "Yeah, we like this. We'll feature it, or we'll do something with you"?
Oh shit, I don't know.
1 in 10, 1 in 100.
It's 1 in 10, I think, maybe.
Okay, that's pretty
but
good.
I think there's a lot of people that didn't respond and just either they covered it or they didn't.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine. That's also what we were expecting.
So, but you did. So these guys would go off and do a bit on it, and you would be kind of like the last to know, right?
That's some instances, yeah.
Right. So again, having really good like presentation materials to make sure that your brand comes through in that is also super important, right? Because I know some, like when you're starting out a business for the first time, you can make all kinds of horrible mistakes in PR and marketing. And I know that a lot of people would probably just send out the link with the key and then think they've done their job, right? It sounds like you put a lot of time and effort into kind of explaining quite simply what this game is about, so the context would help you.
Yeah, we tried to, we also have a press kit, of course, that people can go to and see what is this thing and stuff. So we have tried to do our precautions in that sense, but we've also made a lot of mistakes.
All right, give me some examples of some mistakes that you guys made.
It's probably easier just to hire a PR company to contact the major sites, because they already have contacts there, so their emails will go through, rather than just go in the inbox with 200 other daily anonymous game developer mails.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of something that we will keep in mind for the next time. Like, make sure that we have the money and find a nice PR agency to work with.
And so the PR agency's job in your mind is not writing exciting press releases anymore. It's really the main thing that you would see them doing is getting this game in front of as many influencers as possible.
Yeah, I think that would be their main use.
It's interesting because that's almost like turning into a sales house or sales operation, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can still be nice to have their sort of curating the press material, but it would be more sincere if we do the press material. And after all, we've made the game, so we know what the game is.
Yeah, absolutely. For all the kind of chatter that was coming back from these videos that were being created by influencers, and how could you see a sudden spike in awareness? Someone who received the key from you had just created a video. What would you be monitoring to just say, oh gosh, this guy's actually published about us. I mean, he didn't come back to us, but at least we've got a video up about it. So what were you using to keep an eye on that?
Twitter is the easiest way or the best way to do it.
Okay.
Because you'll see if somebody big posts your video, the people will start to like it and share it, and then it will pop in and you'll see continuous stream of people liking the video.
And this is monitoring hashtags or the video views on YouTube that you're recording, or?
We're using like TweetDeck, and we're sort of just monitoring anything about like Stikbold and GameSwing, just search words and mentions and all the things that we can, so you see when it comes in immediately. I have always have a TweetDeck tab open, so I can just flip back and forth every once in a while to see the activity.
And when did you notice a sudden real spike in traffic? What were some of the biggest highlights that you saw in the run up to the release of the game?
It was when PewDiePie covered the game. That was obviously a huge spike, and.
Well, it's impressive you managed to get through to him, right? I mean, that's really saying something about the game.
Yeah, it was also, Anders and I was on our way to Austin for South by Southwest.
Okay.
And I was just in the airport, I was catching the 30 minutes free Wi-Fi in our stopover airport, and I was just checking Twitter, and then there was a message from PewDiePie saying, yeah, I played your game with my girlfriend, I really liked it. When should I post it, or when is it okay to post it?
Nice.
And it's like,
I'm just about to go to South by Southwest. Can you do it now?
I'm trying to find the gate and all this stuff, and it was really a fun experience.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nothing like time pressure to bring out the excitement.
Exactly.
So PewDiePie did the video. How long did that spike in traffic or spike in interest last for?
Between 1 or 2 weeks, that was until it was trickling down. But there are still people, it's still counting upwards videos. So
it's really a long-term play, and will continue to generate you guys traffic for a long time to come, right?
Yeah. I think it's almost at 3 million views now. So
that's impressive. That's impressive.
And you also see it, I'm not sure, but I don't think that PewDiePie is very good at converting views to sales. But what's nice is that it was very noticeable that after he covered the game, we would get a lot of requests from other smaller YouTubers.
So, were you still sending out keys to people, and what you're noticing were an increased conversion rate as a result of that?
Not so much like that. It was more like people would send mails the other way requesting keys. Okay, now I want to. It was kind of a validation thing, I guess, maybe for some people.
Okay.
Or it brought it to their attention. I don't know.
So, who were the other kind of big names that you managed to get in this process, apart from PewDiePie?
We also have 2 videos by Yorkscast. That was very big. I think that was a collaboration with our publisher. So
okay.
I think they sort of have some contact with them. So.
And then, sort of in the general hit list that you had as well, which were the other names that you were hoping to get or hoping to get and did or didn't? What kind of people?
We also really wanted to get coverage by Smosh. They do different stuff. They do let's play stuff, or where they play together, and then they also do sort of these mock honest video game trailers, they call them, where they sort of they make a video that it's presented like it's a real trailer, and then they are kind of brutally honest about the game, which is kind of funny. It's really funny. Trailers are always lying so much, and it's funny when you do it the other way around.
Okay.
We really wanted to have coverage by them, and we also met them at Austin, where they expressed interest, but we never really contacted them a couple of times afterwards, and never really got anywhere. Maybe they had a change of mind, or maybe they just get so much.
Life can get in the way at that level. Yeah. What about around the Nordics and in Europe? Were there any other sort of channel providers that you were looking to get involved with?
I mean, there was a Nordic channel that we also, they contacted us. That was the biggest, I think, biggest or second biggest or something in Norway, YouTuber, and but there was a lot of it made it a lot easier when people started contacting us.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So it's just like 10 emails a day where people requesting codes, and of course many of them are just like really small hobby people, but there was also quite big channels.
So how many videos do you think were made about your game in this run up to releasing? How many people published content about you?
I'm not sure. I just did a search on YouTube yesterday before this, and I could scroll for
what have you made?
Yeah,
nice.
But I don't know the amount.
Okay. All right. And any surprises in that search? Like, oh, you did it. I mean, anyone that sort of cropped up that you're kind of hoping to get, and then you saw what actually did, or?
No, I don't know. There's no surprise except for PewDiePie and Yogscast. It's just a surprise that YouTube was just that big would cover it.
Okay. So you mentioned part of the lesson is that you would hire a PR company to kind of go out and help you.
Yeah, I should disclose that kind of eventually happened because we ended up working with a publisher, and it was kind of really nice because that was at the point where we realized that it was much harder to get attention from the established press. So we said, okay, they will handle marketing and PR as well, and they can be in charge of that stuff because they have better connections and experience with that, and then we will focus on just doing the sort of interpersonal marketing thing, if you will call it that, with YouTubers.
Okay. And are there any sort of good PR firms that you know that are out there that may be worth giving a shout out to, so anyone listening to this can give them a call if they perhaps got a game that they're planning on releasing themselves?
I don't know. Like the company that our publisher Curve works with is called Premiere.
Okay.
They're in UK.
Premiere PR.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know them.
Okay,
it's interesting.
They've done a good job, I think. But I have very little to compare with, so it's really not.
I didn't realise they specialised in game because Premiere, is entertainment based, but primarily film driven, I thought. So it's interesting to hear them breaking into the games side of things as well. I think influencer marketing is quite, this conversation I had with this girl in London was saying there is no tried and tested way of getting in touch with these guys because there is no organisation. There's no makers studio in the UK yet that streamlines that process. Have you heard of anybody starting to put that together? Because I think that would be a very valuable service if there was.
So what kind of thing is they were asking?
Well, she was basically saying, I'm releasing this game. It's all about trying to get this in front of influencers now. It's not so much about running press releases anymore. It's about getting a big name or several big names to pick up on this game and do a live demonstration, as you managed to do with PewDiePie. Yet she didn't know. She knew who to contact, but she didn't know how to reach them because all their communication is usually handled by their friends, and if you're in bed with the friends, then you're going to get in front of the right the right YouTuber or
Yeah, I think that's kind of the democratization again of the industry, right? I mean, now you have there's a lot of big channels and a lot of big influencers. So if you make a game that is interesting, then somebody should be able to pick it up. I think there is people compiling lists of all and comparing them with numbers and which kind of platforms they do content for. And you can gain access to those, and then you can get their mails from there, and then contacting them directly is for now the only way, I guess, to really do it. But
email and Twitter.
Yeah,
it's the grunt work. You still got to do that. But you don't know of anybody who is beginning to take more of a central role in terms of managing that communication. It's still too early, or
yeah, I don't know. I think there's also. I think they prefer, a lot of them prefer to have it that way, where it's kind of a personal thing, where it's not organized that way. It's we at least played a lot on the fact that we were like a small company and easy relatable for the everyday man compared to like an EA or Ubisoft.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps. I mean, I'm very sure that someone like PewDiePie wouldn't make a video for free of Call of Duty or...
No, definitely not. No, but it's very interesting. Okay, so how are you doing now? What's going on with the game? You published it. How do you feel about it? What do you think the trajectory is? I know that you and I are planning on working together in the near future on a couple of tests, but how are you feeling with the whole overall experience, and kind of what would you change now in hindsight? What's been the key takeaways in launching this product?
Like at the moment we are working on, now we have a little bit of distance to the whole launch and stuff, and now we're working on a DLC, like some extra content we can hopefully publish. And
it's a DLC for people that
it's just a downloadable content, so it's like extra. It's an update for the game with an extra map,
okay,
for people to play on. So we can at least for sure publish it on PC. We haven't cleared it all with the consoles yet because that's also a negotiation with the publisher. So, but hopefully we'll be able to release it on all the platforms.
Okay.
And in terms of stuff that we would do differently, I don't know how much different we could have made the whole Stikbold development process. As I said in the beginning, it's such a long development process, and we evolved so much over that time, like for just being students and like forming a company, and you have to take this journey into consideration. But I think with our next game, we will try to like realize that we can spend more time governing this sort of and building awareness of the game if we make something that is repeatedly updated, and also maybe have some more dynamic content in a sense. That so what you often see with the big Twitch games is that either they're very highly competitive, and that creates sort of in the same way that soccer is interesting to watch again and again, even if it's the same game. It's because of the competitiveness of the game. People want to see how far can the best players drive this game, and what new tactics can they come up with. Or there are sort of the procedural approach, which is sort of where people do random stuff and make sure that the game never looks the same. So that's part of the interesting thing, I think, about Minecraft, for instance, because it's never the same places where you find the stuff that you're looking for. The world always looks different. And then there's of course the expressive thing, which is also on top on Minecraft. It's like the players can express themselves in various ways. So that kind of creates interesting content, everlasting content.
So your main takeaway is actually what you would be building and how you would be building it, rather than how you would be launching it.
Both, I think. Yeah.
Okay. What would you do to change the way that you launch? Any key takeaways that you could give the audience? Is there any kind of like 3 or 2 key points that would have saved you a lot of time and effort and heartache out of this process that you'll be taking into your next game?
This is not so much related to PR and marketing, but focusing on, like, we were simultaneously launching on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, and we would probably consider just making a collaboration with like one platform and then PC, like one console platform as a primary initial or whatever you want to call it.
So Martin, you mentioned that simplifying the production, sticking with 1 or 2 platforms rather than 3 would have saved you guys a great deal of time. Was there anything else that you could kind of give away as advice?
Yeah, so like at this day and age, there's so much content out there, so many games. And you see again and again examples of really, really great games that just get completely buried. So I think it's almost crucial, and that's something that we will definitely do for the next budget we make for the next game, is to like make sure that there's a realistically proportioned budget post allocated for marketing and PR work, because you kind of have to be serious about that, even as an indie. Like, you can't anymore just make a game and then put it out there and then people are going to talk about it by themselves. You need to be smart about it. People will talk about it if you like push it the right way and present it the right way, but there should be money to go to the conventions and show it off. There should be money to, like, if it's not worth your time to contact the press yourself, you should get a PR company to handle that part of it. And yeah, there's just a lot of time in managing the whole YouTube and Twitch streaming, marketing, contacting people, writing mails, and making your content for it also takes a lot of time. But you should also spend a lot of time like building your own social media and stuff, your Twitter account, and that takes a lot of time as well if you want to do it right. And people will only really respond to it if you have quality content, and that takes money to develop. So.
And did you develop the social profiles for GameSwing or for Stikbold?
Both.
Okay, so you have separate channels for Stikbold?
Yeah, we have one for the company, which is more like company-related stuff, and then there's sort of everything about Stikbold is just Stikbold. And yeah, we wanted to separate them because if we did everything in Stikbold, that would be weird when we make the next game. And so that kind of made sense.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much for coming in, Martin. It was very enlightening to have you here. Hopefully this information will be of help to anyone who's thinking about producing their own game. So the 2 key takeaways were don't develop for multiple platforms, figure out a platform that works for you and develop for that. And the second one is think about your marketing. A line budget when you're going out and raising money is incredibly helpful. It will allow you to hire a PR company, take care of the very important influencer marketing that we've just been discussing here, plus all the other items. That's a wrap for today. Thanks very much. See you soon.
Thanks.